Hi, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Joel and Adam. And today we're going to be talking about The Bad Lieutenant, a 1992 Abel Ferrara film. It stars Harvey Keitel, and it was written by Zoe Lund, the woman from Ms. 45, which is a film that we just covered. And it basically is, I mean, this is probably, it's probably a title that people know, but I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen it. But it basically is a similar film to a movie like, say, Taxi Driver, where it follows around a character, in this case, a cop who's a total degenerate, and just shows him sinking deeper and deeper and deeper into depravity until he has a potential moment of redemption at the end of the film. And it's kind of set against the backdrop of this case about a nun who has been raped by a group of boys from the area. So, I don't want to give too much of the plot away at the beginning, but that's the basic gist of it. I believe me and Adam have seen this before, but I think this might have been Joel's first exposure to it. So, Joel, I don't know if you want to tell us, just being the younger guy in the room and maybe not having the same context that Adam and I have with the film,
Yeah. So
what you thought.
So this movie pulled me over on a rainy night with a friend, and when I rolled down my window, it prepositioned me to do some horrific things. Um, this is a sleazy movie. I actually really liked it, for the record. I did. I like Taxi Driver a lot too, so maybe I'm just sensitive to this sort of thing. And I also watched some pretty brutal stuff. Again, if you ever seen something like Irreversible, I've seen that film. It sprung to mind while I was watching this. I was like, this is one of those kind of films, isn't it? It's not for the squeamish. This movie wallows in depravity. It absolutely does. But the performances are top notch. Like, you can really appreciate film as art whenever you're watching this, because some of the shots are haunting. The performances are absolutely breathtaking. Harvey Keitel, I've never seen Harvey Keitel like this before. He is in rare form in this film. And I think the only other thing that I don't know that I necessarily bears mentioning exactly, but it sticks out in my mind like a broken toe. And you made mention of this. This movie has the creepiest Jesus I've ever seen in my life.
It's a very creepy, a very uncanny Jesus.
Uncanny is the word for it. There's something just. I mean, it might be necessary.
I don't want to jump ahead, but I will say that creepiness and the way that Jesus is presented works really well for what the movie is trying to do, I think.
Oh yeah. No, it's absolutely what it needs to be, and almost certainly exactly what the director intended. Actually, there's something really remarkable about this film. And again, I'll kind of warn our more squeamish audience. This is a tough movie to watch. But that being said, this is a movie where there's such fine surgical control from the filmmakers. You just don't get that nowadays. There's always this committee involved. This is 100% the realization of the vision of the creators of this movie. Yeah. So for that, it's an incredible piece of art. So I highly recommend it just based on that. As we can go into this before spoilers for discussion, I do recommend this movie. This is fantastic. Again, it's gritty, it's gross, it's real gross, folks. But I don't regret watching it. I really like this movie.
Yeah, Adam, what about you? I mean,
this is actually my second time watching it. I watched it back in probably 1993. I watched it when it first came out on video, and sorry, I got a phone call there, distracted me. The one person I told not to bother me during the podcast too. Let's see. This is I first saw it when it first came out. I saw the unrated version last time, and it's striking because everything about this movie stuck in my head. Even though I saw it, 30 years ago, it's all still there. At every point in this movie, I watched the R-rated version last night. It was all I could get my hands on. Yes, but at every point that was missing, I knew exactly what was missing and could remember it in full detail. So it's amazing. But Yeah, I mean, I consider this kind of the circling the drain genre of movies, where you're just watching a character whose life at the beginning of the movie is already beyond hope, and you're just watching them
Circle
go
the
round,
drain.
round, like, oh,
It's you know what it's like. It's almost a cross between if Taxi Driver met the Friends of Eddie Coyle. I think one of you might have even mentioned.
Yeah.
I was going to say Friends of
Yeah.
Eddie Coyle. I was going to
Yeah.
say it's that same genre. The Coen brothers will do that sometimes, like Inside Llewyn Davis. Inside Llewyn Davis isn't nearly as dark as this, but it's the same. It's like this character's life is a wreck,
Well,
and
what-
you're just watching bad things happen to them.
So number
guess
one, I
all
saw
in
it.
one
I saw it on Prime, and it said R on Prime, but I think it was the unrated version because it had like the penis and it had like the masturbation scene. It had all the scenes that I
It did.
remember.
I wish I'd watched it on Prime then.
Yeah.
It's listed as being R on Prime.
Well, here's
so
the thing,
I just
though.
didn't even bother.
Here's the thing, though. I bought it on Prime, so I'm not sure if buying it produces a different result for you than if you rent it on Prime. Maybe they feel like if you buy it, you deserve the unrated version. I don't know. But I figured it was worth buying, so I bought it. Yeah, what I like about it is this, like, they just kind of slowly introduce you to just how bad this guy is. So when he starts out, he's just kind of like you could mistake him for a rough blue collar father who's a cop yelling at his kids, but there is something kind of like a little uncomfortable about him screaming at his kids in the car on the way to work, or to drop them off. And then after he drops them off, he does like a bump of cocaine. You're like, oh, okay, so he has a drug problem apparently. And then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And in each step, you're just like, no, don't do that. Even like his drug dealer is like, hey, that stuff's going to kill you. Stop doing that. And his bookie's like, hey, this mobster's going to kill you. You got to stop placing bets. And the bookie like actually cares about him and is trying to get him to steer him in the right direction. And he's just so committed to this path of destruction.
Yeah, he's so self-destructive. It's almost like it's alarming how self-destructive. Because every single time, you're right. Every time he comes up to a thing where it's like, there's no way he would be that stupid. I promise you, he is far more stupid. You know.
Yeah, well, I think what it is, I don't even think it's stupidity. I think he's in such the throes of addiction that, like, he's just not thinking clearly. Do you know what I mean?
I guess. I mean, like, because you never really get a moment of self-reflection from this guy until he absolutely breaks down, like, in the pit of utter despondency. So, yeah, okay.
Well, I'll give you an example of what I mean. There's this scene where he's explaining to the bookie how he saw Darryl Strawberry. I don't think he even did see Darryl Strawberry. I think he was
he's just lying.
He was watching it on TV, and then he said he was there, I think. But he's basically saying, like, oh, he meant to throw the game or something like that. Like, this all makes total sense. That he's got this. He's so convinced of his own argument, but you can see that he's just not even. Do you know what I mean? It's like when we're debating games at like 2 a.m. in the morning, and like I'm saying something that's totally not. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
You're the most successful of us in terms of game design, though. So sometimes whenever you start spouting nonsense, I secretly take notes when I'm just like disagreeing with you. Like, you're an idiot, but let me write that down.
But you know what I mean? Like when somebody's making an untenable argument, but they don't realize it because they're not in the right mental state. Like that's what his character seems to be in that kind of zone.
Well, it's also like he's playing for time too. I mean, it's not even like he thinks they're going to win. It's like if you can extend this one more game. It's like it's because I mean, every one of these situations either pay up or no, I'm gonna double down on this. It's his way of avoiding paying. So it's not even like the arguments are bullshit because he's just trying to get another day out of this and hopefully it'll turn around.
Well, that's why I like them using the World Series as the sort of setup for it, because it's a finite number of games. You can't go past a certain point. And so he's making that argument that's like the final game, if I remember. And so it's like there's no other game that he's going to be able to go to after that for his money. That it's over. And he just doesn't see it.
And it is just interesting having this movie where you're just watching someone listen to or watch a baseball game, and you're like actually like really involved in watching this scene. It's just kind of an
Well,
amazing thing to see in a movie.
well, you know what made it interesting too is I think it was kind of like a metaphor for sin because it's sort of like number one, you have like the tracking of the score in the game, but you have his like his debt, and I think his debt is kind of like his sins in the what I mean. So like it works as like a parallel to his behavior throughout the movie.
Yeah, they do like a 1-2 step kind of pacing with it too. It's always he goes to some new level of depravity, and then he also talks to his bookie. New depravity, new bet. Like they do a really good job of layering it like that. So I think that's a pretty strong parallel. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it worked because I'm not a baseball guy, and so baseball is like the first thing that would drive me away from a movie, like Field of Dreams or something like that. I have no interest in Field of Dreams. I've seen bits and pieces of it. I don't want to see the whole movie.
Tune in next time for the Field of
No,
Dreams discussion.
we're never doing that. Like I've seen enough of it to know I don't like it. You know what I mean?
But
Because my
if
dad
they
loved
watch
that
it,
movie.
they will listen.
Yeah.
I like watching baseball occasionally. It's like I'm not like into any sports enough. I can't watch other people play games of any kind that much that I could really ever be a true sports fan. But I do like going to a baseball game like once or twice a
Okay.
year. It's a nice thing. So I can brag. I was my little league team were the national champions when I was when I was a kid. But it was in Kuwait, which is less impressive than being the national champions in the
My
United
little league
States. But
team
we
was
were
called-
national champions.
My
But,
little league team was Quality Auto because we were all sponsored by local businesses, and we were terrible.
Oh, we were sponsored by Raytheon, the arms company. We were the Raytheon Hawks. We were named after a missile. So
But you probably got the big bucks.
childhood.
You probably got
Huh?
the big. You probably got the big bucks though, being sponsored by such a large corporation.
Not
So-
really.
But no, But normally this would be something that would drive me away from a film. But I found it very compelling because I was like, number one, the guy doing the announcer was like really intense and like angry, and it was pulling me in, even though I have no knowledge of baseball at all.
Yeah, it was definitely really the first radio conversation, like debate over it is just really, really super intense New York radio there.
And also, it just feels important. Like at one point, he even shoots the radio because he's unhappy.
That is my favorite. I love that so much.
That is
There's so many times
that
when I
is
get bad
Yeah.
news and just Elvis that radio.
Well,
Yeah,
there are
that
two
was-
scenes, right? There's that, and then there's the grocery store scene where he just blasts the shelves behind the guys that stole the money.
Yeah. But the radio scene is iconic. That is one of the things that was very memorable from this movie at the time that people would talk about.
But
I mean, one of the things I love about that scene is it transcends anything that happens in this movie. We've all had a shoot the radio moment.
Yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't become a gift that people need.
shoot the
That's,
TV is something you sometimes see, right? Shooting the TV,
Yeah.
or is that just a reference to the Bad Lieutenant when we see that?
No, that's in a
Like-
reference to Elvis
No,
Presley.
it's an Elvis thing. Elvis is just famous for shooting his TV.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm
That
thinking
you
of.
would get it angry.
I think I'm imagining a Simpsons episode where Elvis is shooting a TV or something like that. But
Yeah.
Well, that's the punchline of one of my favorite Itchy and Scratchy cartoons, where at some point Itchy launches him
Yeah.
up into Elvis's room and his face goes to the TV and Elvis just shoots him.
that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking of.
Amazing. A+. That's like golden era of Simpsons writing.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think is worth mentioning is I thought that the fact that Zoe Lund, who herself, I think we talked about this last episode, was addicted to heroin, like passionately addicted to heroin, I would say, based on like what we heard about her. She wrote this, and I feel like that afforded her a very, like this felt very believable in terms of like
Yeah.
how the addiction played out.
Well,
And
the heroin scene was like, I was flabbergasted because you see the needle go into the guy's arm. It's like, wait, were they doing heroin in this scene?
That's what I thought. I was like, is he doing crack? Is he doing coke? Is he doing heroin? Apparently, well, according to Zoe Lund, it was saline solution, but of course
Yeah.
you would never know. Like,
I mean, one thing One reason to believe that he's not doing drugs is every time he smokes something and he exhales, no smoke comes out.
Yeah.
That's a dead giveaway. It's like, it's, yeah, I've heard the speculation. Was he really doing drugs in this movie? It's like, no, he's just a really good fucking actor. It's like you totally believe he's doing drugs, but
But but also the staggering number of drugs this guy, like, he's not
I
just doing
know.
one drug. He's
Well,
doing coke, crack, and heroin. And
here's my
drinking.
read on it is that he's already in this point where he's racked up this gambling debt that is destroying him. I feel like the drugs that, like, maybe if he'd, like, the movie were set 2 weeks before he started putting these bets in, it's like he was probably, I mean, sure he was doing drugs, but I feel like there's just this desperation to his drug use that people get into when there's no hope at all and they're just doing these drugs just to deal with the fact that
Yeah.
they're completely freaking out. It's just a way of him avoiding this
He's
this
regulating his
gambling,
emotions with the drug use. He's sort of using the stimulation of the crack and the coke, but then the depressive effect of the alcohol and the heroin to kind of balance himself out.
Yeah, crack is not a good stress control drug, it turns out. But
But the only believability thing is how much of a physique he's able to maintain with all of this drug use. Like, that's the one part of the film where I was like,
well, that raises that goes back to my thing though. How long has he been on this bender for? Because as I said, I feel like it's the gambling is really pushing him over the top with this drug thing. And so, yeah, it's like if he's only been doing that, if he has just recently just got on this suicide bender because he doesn't see any way out. But I don't know. That's speculation on my part.
No, but that could be true. I mean, I've known people that like have racked up $40,000 gambling debts and stuff, and definitely like that's when they tend to drink. That's when they tend to.
Yes.
I think you're right about that, and I think Lund would have insight into that kind of behavior, just moving in that world. So
yeah, that's the beauty of this movie. It just everything about it just really lands as it's an extremely over the top movie, but also very realistic at the same time.
I think
that's an interesting point.
Hard. Yeah, because I think we've all known at least one person who's went on that suicidal nosedive, and this movie captures it perfectly.
Yeah.
It is interesting, Adam, though, that you describe it as over the top but super realistic at the same time, because that's a really strange balance for a movie to strike. And I think why that works is because the over the topness that it's capturing is a very, very real, a very you could, like, if you were in the city and you saw somebody having a very bad day, you might see this kind of behavior, even though it's very explosive and out of control. Like when he's like crying or when he's like just freaking out, it's not dramatic freaking out. It feels like actual freaking out.
Yeah, he does an ugly cry at one point in this film. That is the most real ugly cry I've ever seen somebody do in a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this. I mean, when you mentioned you liked Harvey Keitel, like Joel, when we were talking about things, you mentioned you liked Harvey Keitel, but you hadn't seen this movie. It's like, dude, if you are a Harvey Keitel fan, you must watch this movie.
Yeah, you guys were right. Like this is an unbelievable performance from Harvey Keitel. Like, folks, again, this is a grotesque movie. But you have to see it for Harvey Keitel. You owe it to Harvey Keitel.
I would add, seeing Mean Streets before you see this is probably helpful, because it helps. Like, you can see why he was selected for the role, number one, but you can also, some of the themes are similar. Like, some of the sort of Catholic guilt that's in there is similar and dealt with. It's a different situation entirely, but it transfers. Like, if you've seen Mean Streets, you can kind of transfer some of the emotional heft over to the Bad Lieutenant. But we did want to talk about the Catholic guilt thing. I know, Joel, you had mentioned that at the beginning, so maybe we should bring that up now. Might be a good time to bring up the creepy Jesus as well.
Creepy Jesus.
So
yeah, well, it makes the movie, like, it really gives the movie a character. Catholicism hangs over the entire movie like the sword of Damocles, and it finally drops right towards the end with the creepy Jesus scene. But, like, I mean, from the opening shot of the film, like, he's bringing his kids to Sunday school, right? So like, there's always.
I think it was Catholic school, so I think he was. I could be wrong, but I
Yeah.
thought he
Okay,
was
okay.
bringing
Yeah, it
him
was
to
just a Catholic school.
regular school, but a Catholic school. Type.
Okay, but he's bringing him.
Yeah, remember they missed the bus, if you remember.
Yeah, that's why when he finds out the rapists are part of the school, I think it sort of all clicks for him a little bit. Do you know what I mean? When he finds out they go to the church.
Well, and I mean, like, everything about this movie kind of like circles back to Catholicism, because like the big crime that they got to solve is that this nun gets raped, like brutally raped, by two, like, I guess they're teenagers from this Catholic school, you know, and then like her reaction to it, and like the way like the church and the way that, because there's a bunch of interesting scenes where like the authority in the church and the legal authority are all kind of like talking around this girl, where she's like sitting on the doctor's table after the medical examination, and like she's not saying anything, like she's like creepy quiet. You figure she's just been really traumatized. But like, what's interesting about her character is that like we're introduced to her in the middle of a brutal rape, so that's not a great foot to start off on. But character-wise, she's really fascinating. She's like the moral center to the movie.
Yeah.
Because whenever he goes to talk to her, she's trying to find a way to process not the trauma of what happened to her, but her guilt at having failed these young men. You know, because she felt like she was like a moral teacher to these kids. And then she forgives them. And like a huge thing for him is that he goes to her, he's desperate. He needs to get the money from cracking this case, so he needs to find these kids, right? This is like the very core of everything coming together in the movie. And he's baffled by her serenity in the face of all of this horror. And like, what's really great is like he comes away from that scene, you know, because I think he collapses in the church, and then he staggers over to her while she's praying at the altar, and he's like, look, man, let me put these kids away. Tell me who they are, and I'll do this. And she's like, I failed these kids. Like, you know, they came to me, and what more desperate act of sin could you have imagined? They come to me like this, and I wasn't able to save them, but I do forgive them. And he's like just blown away by her perspective. You know, he walks, he sloughs out of that scene, and he has this horrific like moral weight in his chest, where he's like, you know, you've been through so much worse than me, and you found this sense of forgiveness and serenity at the end of it. And he's like, and he finds these kids absolutely randomly later on, after confronting Christ, of course, as we all must do while we're in the church and that many drugs. And like, he's furious at them, you know, because he's morally outraged that they would do something like this. This dude who we've seen do worse, is morally outraged at them. Oh, it's I don't want to spoil all of it. It's so good. It's such a rich.
But I think there's a moral. There's actually a complexity to his conversation with the nun too, because he is also the reason he really wants to find these kids is partially moral outrage, but it's also, I think he's really trying to get that $50,000 to pay off his debts. And it's like, that's why when she won't tell him, he keeps angling. But you know, don't you want?
He finds
you know,
new ways.
What about other women? Other women might get raped. I feel like at that point he's still playing the game of, I'm trying to get this information out of her so I can pay my gambling debts. Well, but at some point it all, you know, basically that collapse he has after, it's like, is partially not getting the money, but also the moral. It's just a fantastic scene because there's so many levels going on in that. And what were you trying to say,
Brenda? Another thing too is he does offer to kill them to her. He's basically saying like he can do it, like they'll get out of jail is what he tells her, but he can handle it in in another way. And what I like about that is you think, oh, the redemption is going to be this redemptive violence at the end, where he knows he's a dead man, so he's going to go out guns blazing and it's going to be kind of like Taxi Driver, right? Where like, you know, he shoots up the place. You think it's going to be something like that. And it goes the opposite direction. I think the other thing, to Joel's point, is the reason he's so responsive to the nun is when she says that she forgives these two boys who did like the worst thing imaginable. Like even he is this guy who like did that thing to those two girls when he stopped them, right? Like even he is bothered by what these guys did because it was so egregious. If she can forgive them, and therefore like Jesus can forgive them, then she can forgive him, and Jesus, like,
Yes.
the forgiveness is also available to him. And
Yes.
so I think that's why he's so upset when he sees Jesus right after that, because that's basically Jesus standing there saying, you know, like, I'm here to forgive you. But he almost sees it like a look of judgment. And that's why I like the sort of, Jesus doesn't say anything. He's just standing there, and he's not, and you don't really know what Jesus is there for or why. So it's just very interesting.
Well, it's interesting, and it's really real. Like, that's a moment in the movie where, like, if you've ever struggled with faith, so, like, if you've ever been a conscious human being, like, struggling with the enigma of the eternal is, like, a thing we all have to do. And it reveals a lot about us whenever we do that. And that's a great scene for that, because he's, like, literally wailing in, you know, emotional and, like, religious agony as he confronts all of the depravity and horror and mistakes and inevitability of his fate, you know?
Yeah, it's almost comforting to some people to, like, oh, I'm unforgivable. I'm just going to be, it's like the fact that he can be saved is almost painful, because it's like he's already resigned himself to just this being this person. But yeah, I mean, it's a great contrast, you know, in that scene too, because it's like he's the tough guy cop and she's the rape victim, and she's the strong, powerful person in that scene, and he is this pathetic.
She controls, she dominates, and that's interesting because the movie is often about dominance and submission, right? Like, it's often about his power over people, and that nun has total power over him. He's on the ground. You know, she looks strong. She's, you know, she's unwavering. It's a very
they shoot her like a saint, dude. Like, it's a really good scene.
I think too, comparing this to Ms. 45 is pretty helpful for a number of reasons. Number one, this movie is like the opposite of Ms. 45, right? Like in that movie, because remember, she dresses as a nun at the end. I feel like Zoe Lund, who played that character, would have been aware of the nun connection. And it's like, okay, let's have a nun who does the opposite of what I did in that movie. And so it's a very interesting kind of, if you take both movies and watch them together, I don't know, it's a very balanced pairing, I find.
Well, and also it's a really good refutation of the concept of that cathartic third act violence, you know, because there's nothing cathartic about the third act violence in this 45. It's the end of a miserable stretch of highway, you know. And in this one, there is no cathartic violence. Again, we expect there to be a violent shootout or something, or him to enact street justice, and nope, he finds it in his heart to pillory himself for the hope of a better tomorrow, a true act of martyrdom. It's so out of character that I was actually shocked whenever I saw it. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is how this movie ends? It left me absolutely flabbergasted. And I think that, like, it's impressive that a movie that is older than me, I think, can have that kind of power. You know, I'm again floored by the power of art to surprise and you know, recontextualize us. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible, the end of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, can we talk about the ending yet, or do we want to say?
Let's spoil it. Spoilers time,
Spoiler.
Folks. Go watch this movie, but then come listen to the rest of this.
Yeah, I love the ending, because it's like he is such a weak character who has struggles with doing the right thing. And it's like he's just done this act of redemption, and just the way he immediately gets killed after it is almost like, if you assume God exists in this universe, it is like the act of mercy that God's. It's like, okay, it's like Christ dying on the cross. It's like you've done your sacrifice. Boom. Here, I'm calling you home now.
Come on up.
It's almost like, oh, this is the best possible thing that could have happened to him at this moment, because you know the next day he'd wake up and, oh, I'm gonna go out and get high.
Immediately. Like, if he didn't wake up with a crack pipe in his hand, I'd be extremely surprised.
So it's a strange form of mercy at the end that he gets shot. But
it's almost part of his redemption too, because that is kind of the thing that squares his gambling.
True,
debts, you know?
You're right. He is paying his debt. You know.
Yeah, all of his debt is paid.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
But yeah, I think the other thing too about the Zoe Lund connection is in this movie she plays the woman who basically administers his drugs for lack. I don't know if she's his dealer or his mistress or what, but she basically
Yeah,
is this lady he
unclear.
goes to, and she
Yeah.
helps him smoke crack. She helps him inject. I don't even know if she's really real. You know what I mean? It's, you know,
Yeah,
That's
not sure.
interesting.
There's a mysterious element to her character in this movie, and she definitely hogs the best line, the one about eating each other.
Oh yeah,
Holy
like
shit, dude, that was
hold on.
poetry.
I wrote. She's got a few.
It's a beautiful monologue.
She says vampires are lucky they can feed on others, but we have to feed away at ourselves or eat away at ourselves. She says another line too, which I'll mention in a moment. But the other thing is she has red hair, and that's a woman that he's kind of seeking like some kind of like spiritual nourishment from, even though it's like dark and insidious. But the nun also has red hair, you know, and so I feel like those two characters are. I don't know what that means, but I feel like it's important that like he has these two female figures that are that both seem to have power over him, and are both pivotal, you know, in terms of his. I don't know. And one is plunging him deeper into hell, and one is lifting him out.
Yeah, there's a real duality with those characters. I'm gonna just go completely Jungian with my interpretation of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't even have an interpretation. I just thought it was like, well, obviously they're meant to pair somehow, but I don't know what the significance is. But the other thing that she said was she quoted the Bible, and she said I forget how she quoted it. She said like she just says like Jesus says 70 times 7. That's all she says, and that's a reference to the book of Matthew. There's a few different versions, but I think the most common one, and the one that she was thinking of, was then Peter came to him and said, Lord, how oft shall my brothers sin against me, and I forgive them? Till 7 times. And Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. So, you know, so it's just this idea of just, you know, having an endless well of forgiveness, even when someone keeps, you know, doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, and like that, I like that quote. Like it's a real. I hate to say that's such a Jesus quote, but it is, right? Like,
Well,
there was a lot of.
Cool. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
It's fine. Go nuts.
Well, I was just gonna say the thing I thought was cool about it is that it's not. She just says the 70 times 7 thing, and she leaves it at that. It's not this like epic biblical quote. Do you know what I mean? It's not. You don't even if you don't know the verse, you don't even know she's quoting the Bible, really. So
yeah, it sounds like almost like nonsense if you're not familiar with the quote. It's
yeah, it went over my head. It's been a long time since I went to Catholic school. So.
But I thought that was an interesting moment in it. Also, the other interesting thing about the Jesus, one thing that we forgot to mention about the Jesus is he does call Jesus a rat fuck when he sees him. Like
yeah.
It's interesting to me because Joel, I know that you went to Catholic school, I think, and we both had pretty intense religious upbringings, I would say.
Yeah.
And one thing that I remember being told is that like you're all like sometimes they would tell you to like an angry prayer is sometimes better than an insincere polite prayer. Do you know what I mean? And so I just thought that was like an interesting moment where he's still raging. He's still like he's being like still being really rude to this image of Jesus that he sees. But and that he calls him a rat fuck is like a real, I don't know, like a real gangster movie thing to say to somebody too. So
yeah. Like this isn't your bookie, dude. This is the Son of Man. You gotta chill out.
I have to say his bookie was pretty nice too. Like overall, like that bookie seemed like really concerned about his well-being. But yeah, I don't know. Do we have anything else on this film we want to talk about? I feel like we've gone over a lot.
I think I will say on that last point that the Rookie is nice. It kind of goes down with my feeling too that he's recently gone on this total tail slide, because it's like I feel like all these people, they're concerned. It's like, dude, what are you doing? You know, I mean, it is that way people react when a friend suddenly goes over the edge. He didn't used to be like that. I don't know. That's hard to say.
Again, that's one of the reasons why this feels so real. And like, I agree with your interpretation there, because like This guy, okay, like you can only drive a car at the absolute highest gear and top speed for so long,
Yeah,
and you can
yeah,
see people accelerating towards it. I feel like we see the beginning of the slide, and then we see him just not care, no matter how quick he's going towards that brick wall in this
yeah,
film. Like that's what it feels like. That's the moment it
Yeah.
captures, and it nails it.
yeah. As far as one more thing to talk about, I find it interesting how they handled the family in this. Like a more Hollywood
Yeah.
movie would have had his wife like, "Yo, what are you doing?" Blah blah. It's like the wife is just like non-existent in this movie. It's like
We're not even sure who the wife is, to be honest, right? Because we have a woman who looks like she's his wife and acts like it, but there's another woman in the room who could very well have been the wife that you know what I mean? Because there's
there's
that.
the aunt. The aunt, I assume, is the older woman, and you've also got
The older well, correct me about that. So the lady calls the older woman her mom, right? The woman who we think is his wife, correct?
I'm not sure about who called who mom. That I've forgotten about.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
But you don't know if it's his mom or if it's her mom or what.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah, Mama's one of those titles.
I didn't
that,
hear
like,
aunt. So if somebody got called an aunt,
The kids talk about the aunt when they're driving to school
Oh.
at the beginning. The kids like, Aunt whoever was in the bathroom for
Oh,
blah
yeah.
blah blah.
but we don't
That's
know
where
who,
aunt comes from.
but we don't know which one of them is the
No.
aunt and which one.
We don't.
Because there's
Yeah,
there's two like approximately the same age women
Yeah.
at the breakfast table.
But the fact we're confused about this is my point. That it's like the family that a more Hollywood movie would have like really done all this family drama, and it's like the family's just almost studiously. We have like the old woman, whoever she is, walks into the room, sees him, and she just walks away. It's like I don't even.
Yeah, she
want
gives
to
him like
know.
a mysterious look of judgment, and that's about it, right? And then
Exactly, but it's like, oh.
and I'm still wondering, was that his mom? Was that his mom-in-law? Was that like an aunt?
I'm guessing it's the mom-in-law based on that, because I feel like an actual mom would have been more willing to, whereas a mother-in-law would have been more I don't know.
I think a mother-in-law would have been a little more active in her distaste. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I almost feel the opposite of Adam. I feel like a mother might have quietly done what she did.
yeah, you're right. I got it.
I mean, but that's the thing. It's so ambiguous. It really could go on. Like both are fine. But I think you're right. I think not only that, he doesn't have a name. Pretty much nobody in this movie has a name, right? Like who do we actually see the name of?
Oh shit. Yeah, you're right. You're right. There aren't a lot of names.
Okay, so
you're right. I don't know his character's name, and I never even thought about it.
So Jesus has a name in the movie. I guess there are a couple of people that look like they might have names, like Julio and Paulo.
Oh yeah, I didn't look at the cast of this.
Yeah.
Saw this.
But he's just called
the lieutenant.
He's just the lieutenant.
Cop #1.
Yeah, Bet Cop number 1, Jersey Girl, Driver.
Yeah, when they shoot him, they don't even call it a name. They're just like, "Hey, cop!" Bang.
Yeah.
And Zoe Lund is called Zoe, but I don't remember her being called that in the movie.
I don't think that's actually.
She wrote it, so she wrote her own name in. Yeah. But other than that. Paolo, of course, Paolo and Julio have names because, of course, they get identified. Oh, and there's Bote. Yeah, Bote. We have the whole Bote name conversation.
So yeah, so I don't know, but I think it does create it, almost by not drawing in those details. It feels more plausible because they're in real life. It's not like I don't make a point of using a person's name just so the audience understands who they are. And I don't make a point of clarifying my relationship to that person. Do you know what I mean? Because I know it internally. So
yeah, it makes it feel more like you're seeing a slice of this guy's actual real life.
Yeah.
The Hollywoodness is gone here. It's not like It's not dry. It's not like a documentary. The emotional reality is something that is used to kind of bring you into the film. So there's a directorial eye, but like you don't see it because you're feeling it. You'd experience it on a different level. It's really a gorgeous piece of filmmaking, people. I'm actually kind of upset by how much I like this movie because I just saw it.
This is a true classic, I think, in my opinion. This is just a cinematic triumph. So
I watched it twice this week for this podcast, and I have to say, like, watching it 2 times in the same week is definitely a grueling kind of experience, just given the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I waited 30 years between viewings, so and that was about right. That was the right level. I was
But
right. But on the name thing, there's a character called JC played by Vincent Loresca, who I'm unsure who that is. But I'm like, so the one of the only characters the name has the initials JC for Jesus Christ. Is kind
was
of
it his bookie by any chance?
I'm wondering if it was the bookie that was
What's the guy's name? Vincent Loresca.
Vincent Loresca.
Okay, let's see here.
Real-time research, folks.
I know. I know.
No, I don't think that was his bookie.
Need some Googling.
I can't remember who he was.
We can play.
He looks like he was. Hold on, I know what to do. I'll type in his name, and then I'll type the Bad Lieutenant, and then I'll get an image of him in the Bad Lieutenant.
All right.
Ah, crap! It's not working.
Yeah, I was going to say this guy doesn't look particularly famous, so he's in a lot of movies, but I don't know that he's.
Okay, well,
that's a mystery.
If anybody listening happens to know the answer to that, certainly leave a comment so we can solve this mystery. Because that's an intriguing puzzle piece. Another thing is I was reading an analysis of the movie, and one of the things somebody mentioned was that there's like always a cross in the scene when he's doing something bad. I don't know if it's true. The person just mentioned that, but they said like you can see like a cross hanging when he's doing coke and stuff like that. I kind of wanted to go. I almost went back to go watch it and see if that were true. But
yeah, that's. I don't know about that.
Actually, Vincent Loresca has an amazing career for someone who I don't know. He's like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Probably a character actor. He's always like playing in those important side roles, but you never bother to find out who he is.
He's in like
it's like the guy from remember the dad from 6 Feet Under, the guy who dies in the first episode. You get to. That actor. I know who he is. I've seen him in a ton of movies, but I don't know his name. And I don't think I want to know his name. I just like that he's blank.
But no.
I guess something else worth mentioning is one thing that kind of irritated me when I was sort of looking up reviews and discussions of the film is I see a lot of people downplay the directing and only.
Really?
Well, it's not normally done. It's normally done as a way of complimenting Harvey Keitel. But they kind of do it by saying it's really just like a series of scenes for him to perform as this character. And sometimes they'll even say it's not even really a story. It's just a sequence of scenes. And I just don't understand. It's definitely
a story.
I don't understand that criticism.
People are so used to being spoon-fed the 3-act structure. And this movie has an unambiguous 3-act structure.
It's as I said, it's not a Hollywood story where they do all the cliche things like his wife intervening or, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it does. This is very, very well thought out. And I mean, the thing is, acting too. Acting depends on directing. It's like if you're an actor, you're very dependent. I mean, especially if you're doing as crazy acting as Harvey Keitel is here. If you don't have a director to tell you where because you can't see yourself when you're acting. You need that person in the room who's like, oh, go up, go down, whatever you need to do in this point. But
because they don't always shoot these scenes in order. And what's brilliant about the directing in this is that you get that sense of continuing pressure and that continual spiral down. And it's really subtle and really noticeable and really clean at the same time. And as an actor, if those weren't shot in that exact sequence, you would need someone who has the whole image in their head to say, okay, here's where you are in this scene. It's just critical.
Yeah.
People are morons.
But also, to your point, Adam, I think it's really great that we were spared the wife screaming at him over.
I know that exactly. It's not relevant. It wouldn't have been relevant to the movie. It would have just been a thing that it's like, oh well, this is a plot beat we need to hit, and
she just kind of endures whatever's going on with them with humor, right?
Well, it feels more real. It feels more real because, a hack writer thinks, how can I get drama out of this scene? And I mean, the fact that the family is just completely trying to be as oblivious as possible to what has happened and not create drama is more realistic than I'm looking to have a dramatic moment here, which is not how how sane people go through life at
Well,
least.
yeah, it makes the family seem like they've seen this kind of spiral before in a less severe form. Like this is this
Yeah,
dude's personality, you know. He's an addict. He makes bad decisions. He's impulsive. Like they
yeah,
already know this. This is them tolerating that aspect of him because
yeah.
there's good aspects to him too. You know, you know these people like real
Well,
families act like this around their problem members. It's just how it goes.
Yes.
that is
Exactly.
something worth mentioning is the fact that he's this terrible person, but you also feel so sympathetic to him. Just because I don't, and he doesn't. It's not like he does anything particularly redemptive, except at the, it's not like we see a scene of him like, you know, feeding a kitten or anything that where it's like, oh, he's got a heart. It's just you just can. I think it's because you can see the pain in the guy, and
Yeah.
it comes from a. It's not coming from like a hateful place. It's coming from a. There's some kind of turmoil going on here that
Yeah,
obviously is connected to the gambling debts, but those are probably just a symptom of something much deeper.
well,
Um,
he does stuff in the movie that's adjacent to good too. Like when he stops,
yeah.
like remember when he goes into the grocery store that got robbed, and he's like, "Give me the money back," and he just gets it back from them. Like that's kind of good adjacent. I want to
Well,
call it good.
No,
I mean,
he's keeping
he
the money
basically
though.
no,
It's
but
just,
okay,
he's
wait.
the one robbing the grocery store.
Well, not only that, but he sent the guy who got robbed goes to jail for the night because he has them. You're right. He has them take him in.
No, he goes to give a report.
Oh,
So
did he?
got,
Okay, I
Yeah,
thought
I
he.
know.
I
He
have him,
thought
goes
he
in
had
to
to
have,
take
have
him.
him
jail.
have him give a report
Okay.
so we can get him out of there
Okay.
so he can shake down the
So it's
the
less bad than I thought. But yeah, I don't know. I thought he just took the money because he needed money. That was what I thought. I mean, I guess he
We
didn't.
don't
He
really
didn't put
later
them
see him
away.
do anything with that money. So like, no, I think he just
well,
gets the money back from.
$500 was too little to help him with the amount of debt he was in. So I'm sure he went and blew it on drugs.
Yeah.
But right, well, the drugs we watched him do
Yeah,
were,
but
were,
like,
were at
and we're
500
introduced to
bucks
him.
in it.
Yeah, we're introduced to him taking his kids to school, like a Catholic school. So like, there's a few things where you're like, that's kind of good adjacent.
Uh-huh.
He tucks
So
his
yeah,
kid in at night, right? There's that scene where he tucks his kid in.
yeah.
So
I mean, like, there's just things like that, and like his connection with his drug dealer lady friend. It's not like it's parasitic, you can tell, but also like there is a certain level of like kind of need or necessity or sincerity to it that I don't know. It makes it like even though it's bad, it's not like a I don't know. It's hard to characterize this right. It's not a healthy relationship, but it is not one in which it is openly abusive. So like
Hmm.
they're both like injured people that have found each other, you know? So it's like,
yeah.
okay, they're not going to make something good happen here, but they're not like hurting each other any more than they would be hurting themselves individually.
Well,
And so there's something like friendship, like something that like real friendship below the surface there. I don't know, it's compelling.
she's
Well, the
almost
other thing,
tender with him, right? Like she's like
Yeah.
administering the drugs in a way that's like almost like helpful, you know? Um,
yeah, and I mean, the other thing is that the bad things he's doing are coming from, a pivotal line is him talking about how weak he is that it's like they're coming from weakness. It's not like he's going out of his way to bully people, even though he is. It's that they're all things where he's fulfilling this. It's like, I don't know. I feel like it's just he's this pathetic figure. It's not like he's the
Yeah.
strong bully. He's
he's
the
he's a
pathetic.
wretch. He's a wretch.
He's a
He's
wretch.
yeah.
He's a wretch. So it's like, there's just a difference between a strong bully and a
Yeah.
pathetic bully. They read differently,
They
even
they
if they're
do.
both bad people.
Yeah, I think that goes a long way to explaining what is sympathetic about his character. He's kind of broken and wounded and fragile and pitiful inside. So like when you get
Yeah.
to him getting murdered at the end, you get the feeling that like the guy that did that was like a strong bully, someone who kind of got his way by being like sociopathic and pushy and violent and brutal. And this guy kind of gets his way by being weaselly and pathetic and opportunistic. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know, something about it. Like there's a less evil bully, and I like him more.
Yeah, that ending execution scene is pretty powerful the way it's done. Where the
Yeah.
car
It's
just
really
pulls up.
it's so wonderfully
This
sudden, you know.
Just the way it keeps going. It's like the scene just continues for a while with the people kind of gathering and the woman seeing what happened, and it's just, I don't know. That just really adds to it somehow.
I think another reason to watch Mean Streets as well, because it's not the same, but there is a similar type of final, I won't say what happens, but a final shooting, except the cars are both moving. That's the main difference.
And it brings, I mean, it's similar. I mean, it's not the same scene at all, but there is a similarity to the end of Friends of Eddie Coyle too. Just,
very strong.
It's got a similar feeling you have at the end of the movie.
Well, in all three of those movies, there's this inevitability about what's going to happen.
As I said at the beginning, the circling the drain genre. It is, for some reason, a lot of movies I like that. I like the circling of the drain movies. There's just something horrifyingly compelling about them.
No, it's well, you know what it is? It works well because in a way they also function as hangout movies where you're just hanging out with the characters.
Yes.
And you have because it's the circling the drain, you know where it's going, and you don't feel like you're racing to the plot because you kind of don't want the plot to happen because that's when the character's going to die.
Avoiding inevitability. You're trying to do everything you can to forestall it, and it puts you in the same seat with the character. It is compelling.
Yeah, I mean, and Ms. 45, going back to that again, I would consider that a circling the drain movie. It's like her character is just headed towards her doom. It's like that's the road she's on.
Yeah, it's more like how long can you keep this going, kind of.
Yeah, halfway through the movie, I'm like, there's no way this movie ends well. I'm just gonna see how this blows up.
Unless that movie became a superhero film at the last minute, there was no possible out for that character.
I was familiar with Abel Ferrara's work. I was like, this is not going to turn into a superhero movie. So.
But yeah, this
grimiest superhero origin story ever, man.
Yeah.
Well, Miss 45 would be a pretty cool superhero name, right? Like, give it up for Miss 45.
It almost sounds like a superhero name, right? Like there's a glamour to it. We're not talking about that movie, but there is a glamour to that movie.
We can do it in the MCU. Have the MCU version.
With the Abel Ferrara
strong,
MCU.
positive,
that's what I want.
Strong, independent woman. It fits their model.
I don't
know.
That's what I want.
What was that?
Abel Ferrara MCU. It's going to be awesome, man. It just resurrects Jesus comes back and resurrects the bad lieutenant.
It's the antithesis of what these movies are about, though. I think
Thanos is just a drug dealer, and that's all it takes. All the characters unravel and go into self-destructive spirals.
Well, I'd much rather watch a movie about a bad guy who's just a local drug dealer than about a bad guy who I don't quite know what Thanos is, but I have a vague idea.
Man, okay.
Cosmic level. I don't want to bore the audience either by, giving them the break.
The Marvel.
I'm a comic fan, so I could have this discussion, but we should have it another day.
Okay.
Another day, folks. We'll tease this like a Marvel.
But he's cosmic, right? He's a cosmic character, Thanos.
He's cosmic, and there is something really wonderfully personal about the guy.
Yeah.
Like,
I think they did a good job with Thanos as you could possibly do in those movies, actually.
Yeah, pretty much. They got a good actor.
Yeah,
That's
who plays Thanos, anyways?
What's that?
Who plays Thanos?
I can't think of his name.
Yeah, the same guy who played Cable in Deadpool. I can't remember his name either, but yeah, he's a really good actor. I don't have my phone next
Josh
to me.
Brolin.
Oh, he is a good actor. I do like him.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he played.
He's an actor that kind of reminds me of actors that you like. There's something about him that gives me that. Oh, I bet Brendan would like this guy.
Yeah, I like those kind of classic type actors. Do you know what I mean? Like he's got kind of like a Charles Bronson-y type.
He does.
Vibe,
Yeah, and it's a case too. It is a thing about the MCU people talk about where the villains are the weakest part of a lot of the movies, and he is the standout where they didn't come up with a half-assed villain. It's like
they actually made a really good villain. That you
maybe I'm wrong on Thanos then. I don't know.
If you want to go like Thor: The Dark World, the villain in that's your cosmic boring nothing villain.
I think that darkness is better than light, but is it the light better than darkness? Jesus Christ, kill me. Yeah.
So, but The Bad Lieutenant, I would say, if people have a strong stomach, they should watch this movie. If they're neither squeamish nor overly prudish about the movie, like you have to like movies that venture into territory that is like uncomfortable to accept this movie.
This is not a cozy watch. Adam's judgment of 30 years between viewings is probably about right.
It's like when I think of like weird 90s movies, like edgy 90s movies, this is like one that would rise to the top of the list in terms of that sort of like ethos of filmmaking. I know Ferrara's not like strictly a 90s movie filmmaker, but this definitely has a strong 90s feel to me.
I'm so mad that I love this movie.
Yeah, no,
because you're right. I kind of can't watch it again. It's too much. You know, it's like eating a whole cheesecake at once. Like I love cheesecake, but man, I can't do that again. It's going to be a couple of years.
Yeah, like you have to. It's basically like, okay, can I sit down again to watch Harvey Keitel cry? Like that is the.
Yeah.
Do I need to see Harvey Keitel naked and cry?
We didn't even talk about the naked Jesus dance. The crying with his hands out and his penis.
Well, that's in the unrated version, and I as I said, I clearly remember everything from the unrated version from 30 years ago, but that was not in the version that
the Prime version had that. The Prime version had that.
Okay, yes, that's clearly get the Prime version. This is
definitely go for the Prime version.
And just to be clear, that's just so people don't like rent it just to see Harvey Keitel's penis. It is not a sexy scene in any Harvey Keitel is. This is got to be one of the most unflattering in terms of the imagery of his face and everything. This is not a flattering depiction of Harvey Keitel.
No, it's making this movie. You have to give Harvey Keitel credit because this movie had not been good. This is the kind of thing that could just ruin your career and you become a laughingstock. But the magic worked in this, and the crazy things he does in this movie land. But it's like this is like within an inch of being a career destroying movie. But he pulls it off.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that movie from what's that Ben Stiller film? The one where they're making the movie in Vietnam. I don't know why I'm.
Tropic Thunder.
Yeah, Tropic Thunder.
What was the name of the movie within the movie that ruined his career? The Simple Jack.
Something like that. He was like, oh God, let's not.
No, but what
I love that movie, but let's not go in there. I'm using it
to illustrate Adam's point that it's like he's getting up to that line, that Simple Jack line. Not that he's playing a character like Simple Jack, but that level of you've ruined your career by going too far into this character in the movie.
God, the scene where they're making him do Simple Jack in that movie in the prison camp is the comedy gold. I need to watch Tropic Thunder again. That's a brilliant film.
I kind of need to watch that again now that you brought it up. Yeah.
Damn it, Brendan.
I'm sorry. So
I need to start watch that movie again ever since Robert Downey Jr. put on blackface.
That's that should have been easier for me to recall. It wasn't like some obscure film,
No,
but it's not. I am struck by how, having not seen this movie in 30 years ago, how almost every scene in this movie was still in my head. It's like there's not many movies from 1992 where I could just go and remember everything.
But you know what it is too?
My brain.
Adam, I feel like the culture was like, because I had the same experience, and I've had a similar experience when we watched movies from that era a lot of times, and I wonder if it's because we weren't online all the time and doing all the things that we do now. Maybe our brains were just absorbing like single viewing of a movie might have been a lot more sufficient than it would be for me today.
On the other hand, I can make the counter argument, like back before the internet existed, I would be more likely to have the TV on all day, like whether I was actively watching it or not. Like now now my TV only gets turned on when I'm like, I'm going to stream this movie. I am going to watch this TV show. Whereas it used to be, I used to have visual media kind of blaring somewhere in the room all the time in the TV era. But yeah,
here's what I'll
I
say
think the
about
point
that.
still stands.
But what I would say about that is you're still getting at least, even if it's TV, you're still getting like 12 or 15-minute chunks of consistent.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But if you're online, if you're using the internet the way most people do, you're clicking every 5 seconds to something new. And that's sort of more what I'm talking about. Like that sustained focus might not be, that's probably important to memory, is what I'm assuming.
That makes sense. And I will say that in the early 90s, there are a few films that are burned into my mind. Because Bram Stoker's Dracula is burned in there, too. Like, I remember every single frame of that movie.
Which Dracula movie?
The one we reviewed and screwed up really badly because the audio was annihilated.
The Coppola. Yeah, I'm similar with that one.
I'm going to force you guys to rewatch that this Halloween. We're going to do another stream. It's going to come back from the dead.
I wouldn't mind. And we could have like the new version and the bad audio version, and people can compare to see how consistent we are.
Except please don't do that, guys. That audio is so terrible. I wouldn't wish that on you.
Yeah, I think it's been long enough that probably by Halloween we could do another Dracula one because I don't really remember our conversation very clearly, which means we can have the same conversation. I won't feel like I'm just parodying myself.
Yeah, and we'll probably move to different positions. Like we'll probably start like what Joel was saying, somebody else will be saying. It'll be
I'm gonna
debating from the.
I've absorbed all of Joel's points about the movie, so I'm going to spout them all now. And
oh God, I hope I haven't turned it into Brendan's points about the movies. One of the things I love about our friendship, Brendan, is how little we agree on things.
We agree on some things, but we just have a difference of opinion on many other things.
It's wonderful and fascinating to have such differences, though. Like it's a rewarding friendship.
Well, I mean, the only thing I remember really disagreeing with you on, and we've documented this, is Rocky IV and Sleepwalkers. Those are the only two things I really remember.
You brought me around on Rocky IV, though. I need to rewatch the Rockies now. I need to do a Rocky and Creed full watch.
There's a new cut of Rocky IV that Sylvester Stallone did as well. There's a director's cut now.
Really? I don't know if I want to. Stallone did it.
Well, the reason I bring it up is it removes a lot of things people complain about.
Like the goofy stuff.
Yeah, but I think the goofy stuff is part of what makes it.
I agree with you. That gives the movie such a unique flavor and character. It makes it stand out in such an interesting way. So I wouldn't want to.
Four's the Drago one, right?
Yeah, four is the Drago one.
Four is the Drago one.
It doesn't work without that tone. If you make it feel like another Rocky movie, like Part 2 or something, I don't know, it wouldn't feel as interesting to me, I think.
Well, and what you eventually, I think, really won me over with was the fact that movie is the absolute crest of that zeitgeist at that moment in culture. You know, so as a cultural artifact and a piece of art that is like of its time and place, it's perfect, you know? So, yeah, you can look at it like, oh, that's goofy. It's like, look, dude, culture gets goofy sometimes. Sorry.
Dude, I'm sorry to say dude, but when I remember the trailer for that movie was literally just two boxing gloves, one with the American flag and one with the Russian flag on them, just coming at each other, blowing each other up. And we understood entirely what it meant. That was what was so interesting about that.
I'm pretty sure that image was you. We talk about early Simpsons. I'm trying to remember the early Simpsons episode that used that exact image.
Oh God, you're right. I remember that. Crap, I don't remember what episode that's from.
By the way, we're trailing into other territories, so we should probably
let it go now. Yeah, we can go into our.
So again,
farewell, Bad Lieutenant.
Bad Lieutenant, 1992, Abel Ferrara. It's a really great film, and also I think because we also discussed Ms. 45, I think this movie and Ms. 45 are really worth watching just because Zoe Lund is clearly a very talented person who had she wrote The Bad Lieutenant, which is an amazing movie, and she had this amazing performance in Ms. 45, and she obviously had issues with drugs and died young and maybe didn't do as much as a result of the drug use. But I feel like these two movies are definitely worth seeing if you're not aware of her as a person, because it's very impressive.
Hats off to Zoe Lund. The writing in this movie is unbelievable. Every aspect of it is really brilliant.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of it might have been improvised, but still, I think I don't know what the ratio is, but it's still like you can see that she's bringing something to this film that only like somebody with that perspective could bring. So I guess we'll leave it there, and I guess we would direct people towards the Prime version because that's the unrated version. It seems. Again, it says R when you click on it. But just based on our conversation, I'm pretty sure that the version I saw was the unrated version. So I don't know, these things are unpredictable. If you really want to see the unrated version, you probably have to get the physical DVD or Blu-ray. That would probably be your best bet.
I don't believe it's out on Blu-ray though.
Oh, it's not?
I was talking to Matt about it this morning, and he was like, someone's got to bring that out on Blu-ray. And if anyone would know, it's Matt.
One of these days, we got to bring Matt onto the program just to get information to viewers or listeners on.
What you ought to do is just give the whole episode to him, and then have him do a bookend. Like, here's all the stuff they missed.
Yeah, he's just I don't know. I'm gonna tell him to listen to this podcast. Maybe that'll pull him in. He's like, you missed all these points. So
yeah, I don't think I've ever met anybody who knows the amount about movies that he knows. And he's got like so many like physical versions of the films and everything. And
yeah, I mean, he's the one who showed me this movie originally back in 1992. He was someone who had boxes and boxes of videotapes, and I was like, so yeah. But anyway, enough talking about Matt. We'll end the podcast.
So we'll let you go, and until next time, we will talk to you later.